Hello, and welcome back to Friday Vinyl Club, where every day feels like a Friday and every album tells a story. I'm Jamie, and each episode I invite a guest to bring along one special record, an album that didn't just play in their life, but helped shape it. This isn't about chart positions or critical reviews, it's about personal soundtracks, the records that stay with us long after the needle lifts. This episode, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by musician and drummer Jim McDermott. Jim has had an extraordinary career and is one of those musicians whose work spans decades of British music, from early BBC sessions, island record bands, big pop stadium gigs, and global broadcast moments, to his current role as drummer with Scottish band Amitri as they tour and begin to record new material. And for this episode, Jim has chosen Jeff Beck's Wired. Wired is a fearless jazz fusion classic where Jeff Beck blends virtuoso guitar playing with funk, rock, and improvisation to create an album that feels both technically dazzling and deeply alive. But before we dive into the album and why this record matters to Jim, let's rewind a little. Jim, welcome to Friday Vinyl Club. How are you feeling today?
Yeah, I'm good, Jimmy. I'm in sunny Lancashire just now, and the sun is shining for some reason. I don't know why it's doing that, because all day it's been like I don't know. It's been like biblical weather here. It's been hailstones. We've had a tiny bit of sunshine, but mainly hailstones, which is a bit strange.
Yeah. Over here in Yorkshire, we've had exactly the same. And we've had the same hailstones as well. So you've passed them over the Pennines.
Yeah, well, I'm in Red Rose County. You're in White Rose County. We shouldn't really be speaking to each other, but anyway, there you are.
Well, my football team, Leeds United, are safe, so I'm happy to talk.
Are you happy?
I'm happy to talk to the red side. Jim, before we start, I have to say massive congratulations from all of us on the imminent arrival of your second child.
Oh, thank you, Jimmy. Yeah, thanks.
Such incredibly exciting news for you and Suzanne and for little Reggie as well. And on a personal note, I want to just say thank you on behalf of Emma, Ollie and myself for your immense kindness over the years we've known each other. You've just been an absolute gent. And I know I speak for the rest of the Delamitri family when I just want to say thank you on behalf of those as well.
No, listen, Jamie, not at all. You know, I've always felt fans are like the pulse and the heart of any major band. And, you know, some artists, there's some kind of like barrier and some almost like disdain between the artist and the fans, and it's something that the artists sometimes create to actually create some kind of barrier. But you know, to be fair, I have met a few of my big massive heroes, and to be fair, they've always been brilliant. There's only been a few you think, well, okay, he's been a bit funny or she's a bit funny, but there's not many, I assure you. And I've always thought that's a great way to carry on, because fans are, they keep you going. They keep your career going. And I really feel strongly about that, to be fair.
Yeah. And you always take the time to interact with people, whether they've come over from America or whether they're local, outside gigs before and after. And we see you smiling on stage, drumming along. It's an absolute joy to see, Jim.
Well, listen, Jamie, I've got the best job in the world. So there's absolutely, when you go up on a stage with Amitri and you've got these guys in the band and that singer-songwriter fronting the whole thing, then, what other jobs like that? That's incredible. Really, it really is. What a privilege to do that. And also, may I add, over the age of 50, did I say over 50? Yeah. So over the age of 50, yeah, sometimes you think, well, maybe you've had your sort of kick of the ball, so to speak, But no, it carries on. It keeps on going.
Yeah, and long may it continue. Long may it continue.
Thank you, Jamie. Kind.
You've had an incredible career when I've been researching and learning more about you, but I hopefully found out even more during this conversation. So we always like to start right at the beginning. What's your earliest musical memory? What was the sound of the house when you were growing up?
Well, my dad was a amateur opera singer, and he always used to play a lot of kind of classical and a lot of opera in the house. And we, as little boys, you never understood it. It was all kind of, I think it's an Alan Partridge quote, but he always thought opera was just a bunch of vowels. But that's what, that's what it kind of sounded like to me at the time. But to be honest, my dad was always musically connected, never really played an instrument to any level or degree. He always, there was always music playing, and it's a kind of, I know that seems like a very cliched answer, but um, even it was, you'd come in, put on something, some classical opera record or something just a bit odd, and you put it on his vinyl, and you think, well, that's quite good. You hear a bit of that, and my mum was the same. She'd put on some sort of country and western or some old 45 records, and you always picked up something on it. It was an odd thing. And I think one of the best things was um, my mum had a single by the Tornadoes called Telstar, and it was out in the 60s, like 1966, 67, something like that. And 66 is famous for something else, but we can't go there. We've no idea what we're talking about here. Anyway, so I think it was 66, and it was a single called Telstar by the Tornadoes, and it had this really cracking little drum groove in there, and it was by a really famous a session player in the 60s, session drummer called Clem Catini, who played in loads and loads of stuff in the 60s. And I had the great pleasure of meeting Clem like 5 or 6 years ago in London, and he's such a magical guy. And I just thought, that's just made it. That's rounded it off for me. That was something I listened to when I was 4 and 5, and here's this old gent speaking to me about how he recorded it, and I thought, man, that's totally blown my mind.
That's
Amazing.
great. Yeah, that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and he's a
So
very famous man, Clem Catini.
was drumming something you were naturally drawn towards when you were that age then, or was that influenced a little bit further along your journey?
Maybe it was. I mean, I listened to the Tornadoes thing and a couple other things that my brother Kevin used to buy 45 singles and put them on as well. Then I think I heard it on the radio. It was Cozy Powell, the famous drummer from the 70s, and he had a massive hit with an instrumental song called Dance with the Devil. And basically it was just all drums. It started off with drums, had a bit of guitar, then more drums. And I thought, oh, that sounds incredible. That's you can actually have a single that has no words but just drums in it. I thought, this is great. So I kind of listened to a lot of that stuff. My brother Kevin bought me some drumsticks. And of course, I started battering the back of the sofa till it was like, threadbare and bits of the stuffing was coming out. So, it kind of started from there. And what I used to do is play any records that I could in the house and play along at the back of the sofa.
Drumming along.
Which I
So
still do, believe it or not.
for drumming, which records started to feel a bit more like yours rather than your parents? And did your older brother Kevin influence that musical
Yeah,
landscape?
he kind of did because he's obviously, he branched into the music industry properly when he was like 19 or 20 or something. He was buying a lot of punk records like Brazillos, there was The Jam. He was a big Jam fan. And also, just the Skids as well. So there'd be loads and loads of punk sort of records coming through the door. But you got to remember, a lot of these punk records weren't, what people think punk were. It was just a bunch of, zombies trying to play their instruments and they can't play very well. These were like proper musicians. I mean, like the Clash were, sublime musicians. I mean, they could really play and they could really write songs as well. So any Clash records that came through the door, like like London Burning, stuff like that. It'd be like you listen to the drumming and the actual structure, and it was incredible. So punk to me wasn't about people that couldn't play their instruments very well. Punk to me was something completely different. Like guys and girls who could play in a band really well, and I learned a lot from that, and a lot from the jam as well. I used to try and play the drum solo in down in the tube station at midnight, which
Oh.
was one of the Jam's kind of, I think it was a B side actually on something. But anyway, that's my earliest memory of actually thinking, yeah, I could properly do this. So I think we had a big, it's like a massive Tupperware collection in the house. And I thought, right, that's really good. That means I've got Tom Toms. So I can have a little Tupperware tub. That's the little Tom. Then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, like Russian dolls. So eventually I put holes in all of them. My mum wasn't pleased at all because in those days you had to go to a Tupperware party to actually buy them. so, so my mum used to go to Tupperware parties, come back with orange tubs, and I would batter them all to smithereens. Then she'd have to go again. So that's the way it started.
So at what point did your parents take you really seriously then and say, we're going to get you your first drum kit?
I think, you know what, it's quite late on, to be fair. I think it was around about 14 or 15. And because my brother Kevin had obviously branched off and had a bit of a solo career by then, they kind of thought, well, we've got I'm one of three, so my middle brother Paul, he's non-musical in every way. He just does his own thing, which is great. And he's actually a dog walker and a lollipop man now, so that's pretty good. He's the one with the brains, obviously. So basically, Kevin and I, Kevin done his own thing. I started playing with school bands, and I think my first band I played in, and the first name of them was Pretty Persuasion, which is actually an REM song, but that was the name of our first group, and it was a three-piece. So we actually rehearsed and rehearsed, like young bands do. You end up rehearsing so much that your hands are bleeding, but you just love doing it. And I didn't have a drum kit until I was about 15, I remember, Jamie, because I think my mum and dad were really reticent about a drum kit being in the house, and I don't blame them, to be honest. I knew I wanted one, and I used to borrow drum kits from people and snare drums and things that I could hit and go and do gigs. So, and it was kind of horrible to a sense because you had to go to a gig and borrow someone else's drum kit who was also on the bill with you. So, it made sense just to have my own drum kit after a while.
Mm. I can feel your parents' trepidation.
Oh, absolutely. Being a dad
we
now, I think, yeah, I get
yeah.
that. Absolutely.
Well, we got Ollie a drum kit when he was probably about 12, 13. We travelled up the country to pick up a drum kit and bring it back and set it up for him. And it
Yeah.
was one of those phases that he was banging it around for probably 6 months and then it never got touched again.
Yeah.
Before he eventually found the piano, and my word, he's so good on that now. It's a joy to see. But yeah, the drum phase was very transitional, shall we say, for Ollie. Sounds
Yeah.
very different for you.
Well, I think for me, it was more of a calling when you kind of, inside my body that I thought I can actually really do this and I want to do it. There's two sides to the industry, and that is the enjoyment of it, which I love. The actual hearing a song and playing along with it and having fun. Then there's the business end of it, trying to make money from it, that's where it sometimes all goes wrong. But um, and thankfully through my career, the two things have been closely linked, so I could actually make a living out of what I'd done. So it was very fortunate, and to be honest, Jamie, you would never really meet a rich drummer. So, not unless their second name is Star or
I'm going to
Collins.
say, I think
So,
Ringo probably did all right.
well, he done all right. Yeah, he had a couple of nice songwriters there who helped him out. So, there was there's that side to it where it was for the love of it, and it's still, in a sense, it still is. I still love it. So, I never get fed up of walking on in front of the Barland crowd in Glasgow or anywhere else for that matter, and hearing the roar as the lights go down. I mean, if you're not nervous at that, then you've not got a pulse, basically. So, it's things like that that keep you going.
Well, it's interesting. I've got a couple of questions for you around that coming up, but I
Okay.
just want to touch because at this stage, after you've broken all the Tupperware in the house, you're jumping around to punk and the jam and all of that you've got going on. In around 1985, got pulled into the BBC to do some work drumming on. Was it Tutti Frutti?
That's right. There was a new dubbing editor in the BBC who was a bass player. And anyway, long story short, he said, "Look, Jim, this is a bit of a long shot, but they're coming out. The BBC are about to come out with this production of a spoof rock and roll band from Scotland. It's a bit of a comedy, but it's got two kind of unknown actors trying to make their name in the industry. One of them was Robbie Coltrane, and the other one was Emma Thompson. So
Wow.
basically, and I was only just about 16 then, and he said, Why don't you bring the drum kit that you've just got, which is, obviously a second-hand drum kit and fallen to bits that was held up by bits of coat hangers and things." He says, "Why do you bring that into the BBC and, we'll record something and see how it goes?" And I thought, oh, that's great. So, yeah, the drums arrived at the BBC and in Glasgow. And basically, in those days, you were, I don't know if they still do this. I haven't done a kind of film soundtrack in a while, but they would put a big screen in front of you, and with all the little codes at the bottom, which are, like time sequences, where the scenes starts and ends, so you'd know where your cues are. And at that point, I didn't know how to read any drum music at 16, so there was no point in giving me any kind of notation. So anyway, they showed me scenes from this new drama, and it was basically they rehearsed in someone's living room, and the drummer in the series had he had little, I think he had a baby or something. He had pampers or nappies all over his drums to try and keep the noise down, to obviously not wake the baby. So anyway, in the series, yes, I put towels all over my drums, and to make the noise of this guy playing. So that's how I got that job. And the game, I think the payment for it was something like 150 quid. Like, and
Oh.
for a 16-year-old in 1985, that was, I mean, like gold dust. So when I get sent that check, I was thinking, well, I could actually probably do this for a living, and maybe even make some more money, and or maybe go on tour. Or, I mean, you're not thinking that way really. You're just thinking of ways of playing more drums. But
Hmm.
when you see your first check coming through, you think, wow, that is quite special. That's very special.
So it sounds like a switch was flipped. It's no longer a hobby. You think I can do this going
Yeah, yeah,
forward?
I probably could, play with other bands, which I did. I played with about 3 different bands at the time, because my English teacher at school was none other than Ricky Ross from Deacon Blue. So,
No. No
yeah, yeah,
way.
he was my English
Seriously?
teacher. So basically, Ricky, when he came in to the class, he knew I was playing in all these different bands. And, he used to say to me, "Jim, are you free this weekend to come and play? I've got a gig in Gala Shields or something." And I'd be in the middle of an English class, and I'd say, "Well, yeah, I'd really like to, Mr. Ross, but I've not got a drum kit, you see." and I would, and I would actually get to the stalling point where you could see his head going, "Oh, hang on a minute. No, that's too much hassle. No, I'll get someone else with a drum kit." So, that's how it started. And I knew that he was already musically involved, even when he was a teacher. He was in a band called Woza, which is this kind of, rock band thing, and kind of rock funk. And they were really good. They got loads of recognition in the mid 80s to the late 80s. until he formed Deacon Blue. So, but anyway, I knew musically I was surrounded by people in the know, So when I left school, I actually left school when I was 16, sorry, 17. And, I got this job on Tutti Frutti. And that series became a bit of a cult success. And it still runs to this day. I've no idea what it's running, but somebody told me it does run. So that's pretty good. And of course, Emma Thompson went on to do nothing, of course. She's, she's on a council estate now in Bradford. So best of luck, Emma. Try harder. And and then you get Robbie Coltrane. Sadly, he's not with us, but he done nothing either after that. He get no calls at all, nothing at all. So anyway, it was a bit of a dismal failure for the two of them. Ha ha. They both done very well out of it.
They certainly have, and so have you. So around that time, around that 16, 17, were you getting out the house, not just playing music, but seeing music? Were you getting into live gigs? Were you following certain artists or bands?
Yeah. You know what? Because really all the sort of best venues were licensed. I couldn't really get in, and there was amazing venues around Glasgow that I just couldn't go and see any bands because obviously, I'd just get stopped to the door and that was the end of that. But I remember my friend, he said, "Oh, Sting had just started his first kind of solo venture as Sting, not the Police," and he was playing the SEC one night, and I remember hearing the record that he brought out, which is, and I know it's kind of jazz-tastic, but he had an album called Dream of the Blue Turtles, which is quite an amazing record actually. But it had on it this an incredible drummer called Omar Hakim, who played on all of the David Bowie Let's Dance album. He played on Money for Nothing, Dire
Wow.
Straits. He's just this incredible drummer. So anyway, I think the doorman at the SEC, which is this horrible big warehouse where they used to put gigs on in Glasgow, 'cause it was about the only arena you could do in Glasgow at the time. He felt really sorry for these two little guys that turned up with 10 minutes left of this gig, and he said, "Oh, boys, in you go. Just see the last of the gig." So we went in, and I saw Omar Hakim just as he's about to do this massive drum solo, and it just completely blew me away, and I was only 16. I'm thinking, I've never seen anything like that in my life. And obviously Sting on stage and, doing his thing. I mean, I know people will always try to come out with the cool thing. Oh, what was your first gig? Who'd you go and see? And it's called, and someone says, "Oh, I went to see the Ramones," and "Oh, yeah, I saw, New Order or something." But no, for me, it was Sting. Actually, I went to see Sting,
Mm.
and I caught the last 10 minutes of the gig, and it was mind blowing. The drumming was just off the scale, amazing.
I can imagine. I've never seen Sting live, but to be honest, I don't think he's one that's high on my list for some
No,
reason.
it's very
I
strange.
don't, yeah, I don't connect with his music at all.
Well, you know what? I mean, fast forward from, I don't know, 1985, 1986 to 1991, and I was with my brother's band, the Kevin McDermott Orchestra, and we were asked to go on tour with Sting to support him. And I thought, this is ideal, great. So anyway, we ended up doing, I think it was 3 shows with Sting in Scotland. And honestly, what a gentleman he was. He was I mean, we were just, trying to sell a record basically. We just come off our, record label, big major record deal with Ireland. They'd kind of done a major clear out of bands, and we were the kind of the first to go because we didn't make them an awful lot of money. So anyway, that's that aside. We went on tour with Sting, and I remember turning up. First gig was in Glasgow at the SEC, the same place where I saw Sting like 7 years earlier. And there he is on stage at the sound check, and my drums are set up, ready to go. Um, and it just so happened that the drummer he had then was this other fantastic drummer called Vinny Colaiuta, who's strange second name, I know, but he is probably the most prolific drummer on the planet at this stage. And he actually was watching me sound check behind the drum riser, and I thought, oh, this is the most nerve-wracking moment in my life. So
Whoa.
I actually turned round to Vinny and I said, look, Vinny, you're not going to learn anything here, so why don't you just go and have your dinner? And he's so sweet, actually. He turned around and went, no, 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 no. What was that thing you were just doing earlier? I was like, well, I can't remember. Does it go like this? He went, yeah, that thing. That's really good, that. So honestly, what a sweetheart. He was a total gentleman, as was Sting. And we had some fun on those 3 dates, I remember. And including the fact that Vinny Colaiuta introduced me to Sting. And I'd actually couldn't see what was happening behind me, and already had a jam donut in my hand, and I got already, and I swung round my hand to shake Sting's hand. Of course, his hand's covered in jam donut at this point, and I'm
Oh,
thinking, I can't go back now. That's it. You're covered in sugar. I can't do any much more about it, Sting. So that's it.
wow. What a moment. So are there any other gigs that you went to as a fan that stick in your mind over the years?
Oh, definitely. AC/DC. I went to see them 2006, I think it was, when they played Glasgow, Hampden Park. And I think it actually just blew me away. I think it was like we had some pretty good seats, and you don't want to be sitting anyway at an AC/DC show, but they were allocated seats, so you could, sit down, stand up, whatever you want to do. So basically, yeah, that gig was just unbelievable. I've never seen a band who could actually just start to finish, just completely rock you until you rock till you drop. And the demographic of that audience then was younger than any Ed Sheeran, Adele, Beyonce gig or Taylor Swift. They were all 12-year-olds going to see a bunch of like 70-year-old men on the stage. And it just actually blew me away. It was like a colossal sound. It was okay. You had a bit of pantomime on the stage with inflatable dolls and all that stuff coming up, but it was slightly risky as well. And I could see the parents with their 12-year-old kids thinking, "Oh no, what's happened here? We've taken along to see AC/DC and there's an inflatable topless woman or something." But it was just rock and roll. There was
Yeah.
no backing tracks. There was no none of this kind of, oh, where's that keyboard coming from? I can't see a keyboard player. I can hear keyboards, but I can't see one. There's none of that. They counted in the songs 1, 2, 3, 4, and they all started. And it just blew you away, Jimmy. It was one of the best gigs I've ever seen in my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. I must admit, I only know, I guess, the bigger songs of AC/DC, but they do come across as one of those bands that you really need to see live to appreciate them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, having said that, I did go. In fact, I went with Justin and a few other people to see The Who. That was a pretty long time ago now. When John Entwistle was still alive. Not Keith Moon, sadly, but John Entwistle and Zach Starkey on drums. And that was a colossal sound. That kind of blew me away a bit as well, to be honest,
Mm.
because it's kind of spine chilling to watch a band that you've been watching most of your childhood, and they're about, I don't know, 30 feet away from you playing these songs, and it just kind of, it was it's quite emotional. Music is emotional, so it can. That's when I look back at some, you know, um, Beatles gigs in Shea Stadium. I can understand why people were crying and girls and screaming and things, because it's it drives you into a state of outer body experience. Sometimes like if you hear a band and it's your favorite band and the audience are going wild, you get involved in that. That's a human
Yeah.
reaction.
And especially if in my case and in Ollie's case, the bands that you're watching have tracked your life or chapters of your life, and you can resonate to what is being sung as well. So, there's moments at gigs that we go to that, we're blown away.
Yeah.
I think once you're emotionally bonded to a band or an artist and the song, hearing it live just takes things to a different level.
Well,
You
it's, I
know,
mean, it is kind of spine chilling. You know, you get to that point where you kind of think, you know, okay, I've listened to all the records, and you think, well, it can't be that special, surely, or whatever. Then you go along to the gig, and it's like, wow, that is just, you know, that's why I understand, being on the other side of it. Obviously, with bands like Del Amitri and Simple Minds, you can actually, yeah, I can understand how the fans feel. So that's why I think live shows are now so well constructed and and designed in a way to actually give you that thrill. And it's like a
mm.
roller coaster, really. It's like they sort of drag you up to the top, push you off the other end, then in between you've got a little dips and and thrills on the way, and upside down and twisting and turning. So it's if that's a good analogy, then that's the only one I go.
No, but it taps into my next question, which was, what's it like on the other side of the curtain? What's the build-up like when you've got a gig, you've got an expectant audience out there, and you've got to then put on an hour and a half, a 2-hour show?
Yeah.
How do you feel before you get on? What's the vibe in the dressing room like?
Um, I can't get into this in this interview.
It's not an interview; it's a chat.
There's a lot of strange people arriving in our dressing room we haven't seen, and they're carrying packages. No, I didn't say that. No, I didn't. No, that does not happen. No, it's actually, you know what? I think we've got to a level now that we're so professional. We get to a build-up stage of half an hour before showtime. Of course, everyone's getting changed, and there's a lot of naked bodies in that dressing room, I quite assure you. And basically all you're doing is you go about things on your own. You'll have your own routine, and mainly it's a lot of thinking about, okay, that song goes into that song. What happens there? Right, we've tried that one, and also just thinking about what happened the night before or 2 nights before. Can we make that better? And that's what touring's all about. Is you have these moments of autopilot which are quite dangerous actually on tour, because when you leave something that's on autopilot, that's normally when you start making mistakes. So
Mm.
normally this sounds very very professional, but normally I go through the whole set again in my head and I think about it. I think, right, you've got 15 songs in front of you, or 16. What's the pitfalls there? Where did it go wrong the last time? Can you make that better? Could you maybe be in a different position on your drum kit when that happens? Could we maybe segue a song quicker so it sounds more like fluid? So things like that going. But mainly, I know that this is getting away from the question, but mainly is a lot of walking up and down the dressing room and and psyching yourself up, because I don't know how many. I think I've done about maybe 200 odd Delamitri gigs, but before that I've done. I've lost count of many other gigs that I've done, but it's a very personal thing. I mean, a
Mm.
lot of bands I've been with, people will just leave the dressing room for a minute just to give themselves 5 minutes on their own, just like facing a wall or walking up and down the hallway, things like that. And it's not kind of nerves; it's mainly concentration at this point. And then you play the big venues and the lights go down. And to be honest, any artist will tell you this at this level. But if you don't feel a hint of nerves, then really you've not got a pulse. That is the truth.
Mm.
And it's a very good thing to have that tiny bit of nerves, because it gets you on the stage, to be honest.
Over the years, Jim, as that pre-show routine you just described, when you look back, has that evolved and changed for you? So from being in Kevin McDermott Orchestra to being in Hip Sway, or working with Gun or Simple Minds, has it evolved to where you are now with, I guess, experience, or
Yeah, It kind of has, yeah. I mean, I've kind of channeled it slightly better now because it used to be you'd, you know, half an hour before you'd get all jumpy and you go, yeah, yeah, come on, let's play the best gig we can, and trying to high five each other, and and it kind of, but that's youth as well, and it's brilliant. And I've seen bands like younger bands do it, and and it's that kind of way you think, I kind of wish I'd get that back, some of it, that kind of
Mm,
like the sheer joy of walking on the stage. But I think now it's more of a personal thing where you all get guided to your entry points to stage as well. And it's in pitch blackness a lot of the time. So, and that's when, all your preparation comes into focus where you thought about what you want to do. And obviously the songs and what bits you could improve on and things like that. So yeah, it kind of has evolved. And to be honest, there's something that always goes through the back of my mind, and that is, look, Jim, just play it like it's the last gig of your life, because you never know, it could be, So just go on
mm.
stage, have a blast, play the best you can, and come off.
You've played some iconic venues. Do you prefer the bigger arenas to the smaller ones? I know on the Simple Minds tour that Amitri supported a couple of years ago, they were quite cavernous arenas, but you've
Yeah.
played even bigger places than that. How do you feel playing in those spaces versus something really small, or
Well,
even mid level like the Barras?
Well, it's more to do with, I think the smaller venues are the hardest to play. I think places like in Glasgow, at least, King Tut's, Wawa Hut, it's very personal because it holds about maybe 300, 400 people, and the audience are right in front of you. And it's like this kind of almost like personal connection you've got with the crowd. So those are kind of harder in a way to actually get your head around. I mean, because with the Ken McDermott Orchestra, we played a four-band bill at Wembley Stadium with it was us, Joe Cocker, Status Quo, and Rod Stewart. So these icons of rock, you know, and we were first on, obviously, because we've not sold platinum selling records like the rest of them. And basically, you know, I think we'd been on that major stadium tour for about 3 weeks. So we're kind of used to playing stadiums then. It was a bit weird. So anyway, we ended up at Wembley Stadium, and I remember thinking, I'm walking to my drum kit, and I was thinking, this is the same walk that Freddie Mercury done to actually
Mm,
complete his, he's almost like like his life path was to Live Aid.
yeah.
So, and it ran through my head, and it was old Wembley Stadium as well. So I had the Twin Towers, the big enclosed stand areas, and it was Live Aid that actually came right back to my head, sitting behind my drums thinking, I'm at Live Aid, but I'm actually playing I'm playing here in front of 70,000 people. It's quite bizarre. So yeah, that was, I wouldn't say nerve-wracking, it was more like, I don't know, bucket list, thing going on there.
Mm,
So I guess an answer to your question is it's harder playing smaller venues, to be honest, because when you start playing arenas, um, there's a small bit of you lost connection to the audience that you don't ever get at places like the Barrowland, because that's personal.
mm.
You can actually see the whites of people's eyes at the front of the crowds,
Yeah,
and
you
it
can
kind
see
of
us all
gets to
singing
you.
away.
Oh, it does. You can see what people's reactions are, and whereas you're playing stadiums and arenas, there's a big light show happening behind you that you don't ever see. As a performer.
Mm,
So only later on you watch maybe YouTube clips, and you think, "Oh God, the lights were amazing tonight." So you don't get half of what maybe the audience think what you're getting on the stage.
uh,
Because what I hear through my in-ear monitors, like these little earbuds that we all wear, I get loads of Justin's vocal, loads of bass guitar because I like bass guitar, all the keys, of course, and loads of Ian's guitar because he always tends to start a lot of the songs. And Chris as well is a good mixture. So through that tiny little set of earbuds, I get quite a lot. And half the time, you don't get an awful lot of the audience. So when you finish a song, you can hardly hear anything. You think, was that any good? But were they enjoying that? Oh, I don't know. Can't hear anything.
Really, you can't feel the love that
No, no.
that the
It's weird.
audience is giving.
No,
Wow.
it is a bit odd. I mean, it's since the invention of these, they call them IEMs, which is short for in-ear monitors. So basically, it's a sound engineer's dream because it means on stage you don't have these massive big speakers, these monitors anymore. You just have tiny little speakers on stage now, and the artists all wear these little monitors in their ears. So everything that you need comes straight into your head rather than you having to listen to a big um, speaker the size of a wardrobe next to you. So that normally that's the way things are going now. So, but the thing they haven't quite got right is that ambience you get from the crowd, which
Mm.
is the cheers, the shouts, the this and that, and I really miss that, to be honest.
It's interesting that you say that because as a fan and you're expressing emotion and passing your love to the band that's played in front of you, I think the assumption is that you're all feeling a wave of noise, a wave of emotion coming your way. And it sounds like in that situation, you can be quite detached from it.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, I know there's different, there's different technology at work now where you can actually get loads of ambient noise, which means you're getting loads of the crowd. You can ask for that, but a lot of the time it interferes with the thing that you should be listening to, which is your drums, the bass, the guitars, the keyboards, and vocals. So basically, many artists just have their own vocal or the drums or whatever,
Mm.
and it sounds a bit clinical, to be honest.
So
So um, that's how it's going just now. I'd like to say it's the dark arts. It's not. Everyone uses this now. This technology is getting quite old now. I mean, that's in-ear monitors started 20 odd years ago with people just wearing their almost like Walkman headphones
mm,
or earpieces on stage. Then all the big companies moved in, like Shure and Sennheiser, and they all started making all these really incredible in-ear monitors, which can cost you a fortune, basically. I think now the high-end ones, which I've not got incidentally, the high-end in-ear monitors are about £8,000. So just for a set of headphones, basically.
that's incredible. And I'm a Yorkshireman. I wouldn't be paying that.
Yeah,
And and you're a Scotsman. I am
I can
surprised you're paying that.
I can hear the heart stents get in already, Jamie. You're in a
um,
cold sweat.
I'm looking at your. I'll come back to Amitri, but looking at your broader career and some of the bands you work with, like Deacon Blue,
Yeah.
Gun, Simple Minds. You work with Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers,
Oh
and
yeah.
obviously there's the iconic working with Kylie Minogue. How does all that work? I mean, what's the process to get Jim McDermott to come and drum either on a session for a recording or come on stage and join live? Is it just a networking thing or a right place, right time thing, or
Well, I'm
how
gonna
does that work?
Jamie, I'm pretty cheap and cheerful, I think 3 bags of Haribo and £5.50 will do it. That's what it is.
Come on,
It's just quite
come
easy.
on.
It's simple.
Nobody plays for 3 bags of Haribo. It's got to be at least four.
Okay, let's
And
call it 4 as a deal then.
yeah, and Emma loves Haribo, so be very careful of that. She's got plenty of stash here.
No,
But no,
no,
seriously, I
Jamie,
mean,
the serious side to that, and I'll answer you very seriously. I'm always on the funnier side of the music industry because half the time, I always have a good laugh at myself, and and I actually quite enjoy laughing at myself. So anyway, yeah, the serious side of that is it's all about one word, and that is trust. If they can trust you, um, not to go on stage in front of, like the Kylie Minogue Commonwealth Games extravaganza, that was watched by a live audience of 1.1 billion people. So basically, um, I don't know, I can't even get that figure in my head of how many people in a country that exist. Maybe India or something like that has that amount of people. But anyway, yeah, that was broadcast to so many people. But yeah, you get those calls because they trust you. They know you can do it. So, and a lot of young drummers and, young musicians will be sitting, maybe listening to this podcast and thinking, well, that's what I want to do. And the only answer I can give is you have to build up a network of, bands that you played with, recordings, live gigs, and keep it going and keep it going until eventually someone says, that guy or girl from that band, that drummer, they're fantastic. I think you should give them a shot of, in the next level kind of thing, So there is a massive trust issue here because I mean, I've been talking to other drummers and other musicians, obviously, and sometimes the same question comes up, and it's like, well, how did they get that job? They're not very good, or they're not as good as someone else, or whatever. But it's nothing to do with that. It's actually your ability is something like in the equation. It could be 60% is your ability. The other 40% is trust. Can we have you on tour? Can we, can you survive a tour that lasts 2 years on a tour bus, traveling all over the world? And are you going to give us any trouble? There's another thing. Because after all, if you join a major band or a major act, they're your employer and they're looking at you as an employee. So they're thinking, right, immediately, the ability's there. That's great. We've seen your CV. Yeah, yeah. Amazing, amazing. But I'm not quite sure we could maybe go on with you on a tour bus or something like that. I mean, personal stuff happens, and that is a big issue when it comes to getting hired. So yeah, and those jobs came about. And the Simple Minds job came about because Charlie Burchill from Simple Minds called me up, and he said he loved the record that I played on with my brother, Ken McDermott Orchestra, and the album was called Bedazzled. It was a kind of it was it was meant to be our second record on Island label, and it didn't happen that way because we got dropped. But if the record eventually came out and Charlie Burchill loved it, he called me and said, "Look, why don't we bring you up to Perth in Scotland and start recording this new Simple Mind record? We want you to play on it." So I thought, oh, that's incredible. So that's how that came about. The Gun stuff, the Gun records all started because I finished a record, the first Kevin McDermott Orchestra record called Mother Nature's Kitchen. And we recorded it in Park Lane Studios in Glasgow, where incidentally a lot of Waking Hours was recorded as well. So the engineer and producer on that record was a guy who's sadly not with us anymore called Kenny MacDonald, who's actually one of my best friends as well. So he's gone now. He actually said to me, Jim, and I was only 19 at the time. I said, Jim, why do you leave your drum kit set up after, we finish tonight, the whole album? And I said, oh, why is that, Kenny? He said, well, there's this kind of rock band coming in to record their first records on A&M Records, and they're called Gun. And, the drummer, we're not sure about. There's some issues. You don't go into these things. You take it as, okay, leave the drum kit set up, see how it goes. So anyway, a week later, in walks Giuliano Dante and Mark from Gun, and they played me the first song they wanted to record, which was Better Days, which is a single. And they said, well, what can you do with this? What would you supply as a drummer? Your thoughts on it? So anyway, I played this kind of like real big AC/DC drum fill, and they absolutely loved it. They said, "No, that is it. We want that immediately." So I got the job for that record. We started recording. Got to the end of that. Then I think it was about a year later, I got the call again from Gunn to say, we've got the kind of not the same issue with the drummer, but we'd just like you to play on the next record as well. So that's how that happened. So I played on the second Gun record also, an album called Gallus. So that came out on the A&M record label. I think it was 1991, I think it was. So anyway, yeah, 2 Gun records. Then swiftly moved on to Simple Minds. so so it kind of it was just all these phone calls were made, and you start getting calls and emails from people to say, "Oh, Jim, can you just come in and finish off this record?" Or "Jim, can you just maybe have a listen to this song, see what you think?" We're recording a record and we're not quite sure what the drum ideas are like. So that's called a session career. That's what
Yeah.
happens as a session guy. You're almost like a stuntman. Nobody really knows that you're there.
But
And
it's
they're not meant to be honest.
but it's a validation of your talent that and the fact that people respect and trust your craft to pull you in and get you into these recordings or these live sessions.
Yeah.
I guess when somebody said to you, "Can you come and learn some drum parts for Kylie Minogue? You're going to play to 1.1 billion people." I
Yeah.
mean that is it's a gold seal, isn't it?
It kind of is. And, there was, and it's, without being, I don't know what the word is, but without actually putting it in simple terms, jobs like that come about because you are well known, and it's like and that big word again, trust. They say, right, get these players in. They're not going to go on stage and go to pieces. It's all going to work, and Kylie and Lulu and the rest of them, they're going to be happy. And that, when you get confident musicians on a stage, the artists are all happy, and that's job done.
They can
So
relax and do their thing.
yeah, and I mean, and also, sort of king of the castle in drumming world just now is Ashley, who's the drummer before myself, and let's say Deacon Blue, Amitri. That's the band. That's the one.
That's the one.
Yeah, so yeah, and Ashley now he's been playing sessions for a long, long time, and he's done so much. He's so successful, and it's he knows exactly how it works, and you get calls just from random people just to say, "Oh, you fancy coming in? We're booked a studio next week. You fancy coming in doing a couple of tracks, see how it sounds." And this is how your session career starts, and mainly it's all about what you bring to the table. A lot of songwriters will have ideas, of how the drums in their head they want you to sound. But then, as a professional, you go in and you can embellish on that idea. You go, right, okay, I've heard what you want me to sound like, but here's 5 other options that I can do. And normally, out of those 5 options, they're going to get something they absolutely love. So, and that's what I do. I always prepare. I prepare very, very well for recordings, because sometimes you do get caught out where you go into a studio and you haven't really listened to the songs that well, and and they ask you for something, you think, "Oh, I haven't listened to the song. I'm struggling a bit here." So that's you got to preparation and studio time is the best ever thing you can do, because you're talking about recording studios. I don't know what they're like maybe now, but certainly when I was doing all these big records, I mean, they were racking up at, maybe £200 an hour to be in a recording studio. So every time you get something wrong, it's going to have to be done again and again and again. So that's time and money is all at play here. So So nowadays, I prepare far too much for things now.
So it's not a case of I wouldn't say blagging it, but it's not a case of you go in the studio and you're always improvising. There's we're going to talk about an album where it feels like there was a lot of improvisation on,
Yeah,
but for you, when you're going in there, it's be prepared and you've got everything
yeah.
lined up.
But
Yeah.
also, Jamie, there is a point to be made here. I know that this kind of cuts my theory in half, but there are sessions I've been into where I've heard nothing, and that is quite common because if you're quite a famous artist, you don't want to be sending out your rough version of a song to an unknown musician or someone who's like you might not even hire, and you've sent them the rough version of a song. So so basically, sometimes they won't give you anything. You walk in the door and they say, "Here's a track. What do you think? Play something." And that's happened to me before as well. And I think you've got about 10 minutes to come up with an idea. Um, then it all starts to be debated, and oh yeah, is that right? Yep, okay. We can work on that. Let's not work on this. So ideas like that can happen, and it does cut my other theory down slightly, but it just means that there's two ways of recording.
Mm.
um, where you get sent your rough tracks and you prepare and prepare 5 ideas per song. I would say, that's what I do. So basically, you're covered for every eventuality. Even if you get in with an idea that's absolutely so bonkers that you think this will never ever stick, but sometimes that's the one that goes. So.
Mm.
But yeah, certainly, Simple Minds. I was never ever given any Simple Minds songs to learn. I went into their studio in Perth, and they said, "Here it is. What do you think?" I said, "Oh well, okay." Then that's when it all started, the process of drums and more drums, and basically, it keeps on going like that. Yeah, but Jamie, listen, but back to that question. It was a good question actually about how you get calls from bands about different things. But you know, I guess for a long while there, Scotland is so small anyway in size of even any industry in Scotland is going to be quite a small affair to begin with. And Scotland's very famous for rock and roll music and music
Oh
in
yeah.
general, but the kind of session musician industry is very very small. So when you say you're a session man in Scotland, it means you're probably part of maybe 4 drummers that get a call throughout the whole of Scotland. Um, and I was one of those drummers, thank goodness. That got, many, many phone calls to play on records, including my old English teacher, Ricky Ross and Deacon Blue.
Mm.
So I played on an album called Homesick with Deacon Blue. So that was quite amazing, really, because, of all the kind of the 80s music, that came out of Glasgow in that time, I guess Deacon Blue were the ones that kind of they just carried on, where a lot of other bands fell by the wayside. And obviously the current band Amitri, they're the kings, they're top of the tree. So it was so huge round about then in the 80s, of bands coming from Glasgow. It was just so many. It was unbelievable.
It's got an incredible music history as
Oh, it
Glasgow.
does, absolutely, and to be honest, I think it comes from, dare I say it, like a lot of, maybe unemployment, a lot of, maybe not, not having many chances in life or whatnot, and I think, you know, a lot of the songwriting and the ideas came from, you know, young guys and girls sitting down thinking, right, I, I can't get a job, so I'm just going to write something and see how it goes, and you know, and write it down on a bit of paper. And I know for sure there's a lot of great songs from Scotland came that way.
Mm. No, absolutely. And we did a podcast with your namesake, Ian McDermott, who does the Back to Now podcast.
Okay.
His album that he chose was New Gold Dream by Simple Minds,
Wow.
actually. And we had a really good chat about why we thought Glasgow and its identity and the postcard record scene and the vibe of the city, why it was so special when it came to music. And that was an interesting conversation because I've said when I go to Manchester for Ollie, you can feel a vibe and you can feel an identity when it comes to music. But then when you go to Glasgow, it kind of goes up a couple of notches, and there's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
something about the city that just
I think
pours
there's
music.
some Jamie, I think there's something, this might be wrong, I'm not sure. But anyway, certainly from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, what you got was um, a certain amount of anger as well. You got a lot of angst-ridden teenagers looking for a way out, and forming bands was one of the big things. Like it's almost like being in a gang where you formed a gang, and it was like that was your gang, and you wrote songs like that, and and there was a lot of angry lyrics as well. So, definitely Glasgow had that hard edge to it. Still does, but
Mm,
it's kind of toned down now slightly with more, infrastructure and more development and opportunities. But
mm,
certainly, I think through the sort of dark days of 70s and the 80s, it was like there's a lot of angry young guys and girls in Glasgow who are writing songs, and I think that's how you got a lot of that talent and a lot of the outpouring, in a way. I
mm.
think anyway.
You may be correct. Um, and out of that Glasgow scene, and I don't know whether it was directly from an anger perspective, but came a certain gentleman called Justin Curry.
Yeah.
And that's how I originally connected with you, Jim. And you probably won't remember the This Is My Kingdom Now tour,
Oh, yeah.
chatting with you after shows and saying hello type thing. And in fact, it's actually this week, I believe, is the ninth anniversary of that album, that
Oh, yeah,
solo album
somebody
of
somebody
Justin.
posted this. Yeah, yeah, that's right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, how did your connection with Justin come about? I know you worked with him way before that, including the Uncle Devil show with you and Kevin and Justin. But how did you connect with Justin initially?
Well, to be honest, Jamie, I've known Justin since I was, like, 17, and he was, obviously the early Del Amitri days, um where they were rehearsing in fact, they were rehearsing above a sauna, this kinda dodgy sauna in Glasgow. And, basically, Kevin, my brother, and Justin used to hang out a lot, and, at 17, I was kinda trying to get into all the trendy bars and getting a knockback, of course, and, and trying to meet other musicians, but it was basically, Kevin and Justin were really good friends and still are. And it's like, that's how I met Justin initially. And, I didn't know much about Delamitri then. I knew my brother Kevin had a band called the Swag Crocodiles, and Delamitri and the Swag Crocodiles were on the same record label at one point. So, called No Strings Records. And they both released their first singles within, I don't know, 6 months each other. So I think it was, Send Sickness was Delamitri's first record, I think, and, Stop the Rain was Sweat Crocodile's first single. So anyway, that's how it came about, and I remember meeting Justin, when I was a little guy, really, and then, that whole period of, the transformation of Delamitri, um, as a kind of indie rock act into a global sensation took place, between, I don't know, when it was like 1988 to 96, something like that. So basically, I saw Justin as a friend, go from, a kind of indie band to a global like superstar, basically, which he is. So yeah, that's how that happened. So I've known Justin for a very, very long time. And, you know, Ken McDermott Orchestra and Justin Amitri toured together many times.
Mm.
And then I think it was, I can't remember the years, of 2005. Justin took a break from Amitri. I mean, Amitri never really split up. It was just more like a break was taken.
Mm-hmm.
And Justin decided, right, I'm going to write some solo records. And he asked me to come in, for some ideas to see how it was going to go. So basically, a lot of that first record, Justin's first solo record, was recorded in his living room. To be honest, because we set up the drums in his living room.
Really?
Yeah. So there's a great track on that album called "No Surrender."
There is, indeed.
And basically, I remember sitting in his living room recording it, and it was just me and him. And I've got the headphones on, but, I'm quite a loud drummer. So across the road was a dental surgery, and it still is, I think. And I could see all the dental nurses looking out the window, looking at me. I was staring straight in the window, and I'm recording "No Surrender" as you hear it now on the record. So you can think about that track and think, well, what I was looking at the time, there was dental nurses having a cigarette outside the window. So it was basically, they were peering in through the window thinking, I'm sure that guy's playing the drums. That's what we can hear. And they were kind of looking over thinking, Justin had these Venetian blinds, I think, at the time. And I think they were kind of like trying to peer just slightly over just to see what they could see. And of course, it was me like sweating away, playing this 6-minute epic, No Surrender. So, and it was that's how that was recorded. Then I thought, well, that album sounded amazing,
It's
then
incredible.
of course the second album came about, The Great War.
The Great War, yeah.
That was done. And a friend of ours, this amazing producer who done a lot of work with Amitri, a guy called Mark Freegard, who's an amazing record producer. So we done that in his tiny little studio in Glasgow, recorded there. And basically, Mark and I are still friends. We still talk to each other a lot. Well, anyway, Mark has got me involved in all sorts of things. And eventually he called me about I'm hopeless with years, 6 or 7 years ago, let's call it that. And he said, oh, Jim, how fast can you get into this recording studio? And I said, well, I don't know, it'll take me about 20 minutes, I guess, to get down there. I said, just come down as fast as you can. Just don't ask any questions. Just come in. And I said, right, okay. So I went into Mark's studio, and he played me a track back, and it was the Beatles' Come Together. But it was a cover version by another band. And he said, Jim, can you just put the drums on this, please? We need it done like now, and you need to leave. You can't be here in half an hour. So anyway, I'd recorded this, and I said, right, what's this all about, Mark? And he said, right, okay, there's an Irish band that recorded this, but they'd been requisitioned by Harley Davidson motorcycles. It's a band called The Stripes. So they'd come into Mark's place, recorded this version, and Mark thought maybe the drums weren't right. And he thought, I'm going to call Jim. I'm going to send the guys to the pub for some lunch. So he said, oh,
you're parachuted in special operations.
So this is the dark arts of recording, but he said, oh, there's a great pub round the corner. They do amazing pub lunches. Go and have a couple of pints as well. Come back at 2:00. We'll listen back to see what was recorded. So anyway, I dived into the studio, played the drums on it, and it turns out it's for Harley Davidson motorcycles in America. So I played on a Harley Davidson American US TV ad to advertise the new line of bikes. And, it was all over in about half an hour, and it was all done. And I was back watching Cash in the Attic by about 3 in the afternoon, so it was quite good.
So,
And
so
that's how, honestly, that is how the industry works. It is bizarre sometimes.
so that's incredible. Just going back to Justin then. So finally getting into the drum seat for Amitri, it
Yeah.
sounds like you've had a long audition for that, and it was just timing, I guess,
Okay,
then
to be
that's
honest with
got you in.
but, Ashley's my great friend and, and to be honest, Ashley gave me a call and he said, that he was getting too busy now. He'd got so many projects running at once, and a lot of big recording projects. I mean, you got to remember Ashley is the guy who played on Adele's records. He's played on, so many great artists. So, you know, we always stayed in touch over the years, and I hadn't seen him in ages. And so when he called me, I thought, right, what's up? What's the news? And we just moved back from Yorkshire, back to Glasgow after COVID, and and to be honest with you, I've got to be very honest, Jamie. I thought, I've had a really good drum career. I think I might just stop now and carry on doing something else. And I think it might be time, obviously, we've got a 1-year-old baby at the time, and we thought, "Ugh, let's just put a put a stopper on it and say that you've had a good kick of the ball," is the phrase. And when the phone went, I thought, well, not sure now. I might just give it one more shot. So,
Wow.
anyway, we had a good conversation, a good laugh with Ashley because I've known Ash since when I think he's 1 year younger than me, and we both hung out together when Amitri were touring in the 90s. We used to go in pub crawls and all sorts of things. So I've known him for ages. Um, so when that call came, it was very natural, really. It wasn't anything dramatic and it's sad to see a member of a band leaving because, you know, that's the identity of the band, I'm a great believer in when you go and see bands, I want to see as many original members as I can
Mm.
because that to me is a big draw. And I think the same went for Simple Minds as well. When I replaced Mel Gaynor for one album and one live show, I think there was a kind of imposter syndrome come into it from my point of view. Although I'm a session drummer, that's my job. I always think to myself, it's always Big Mel's job. That this is Simple Minds is Big Mel Gaynor. That's who I want to be there.
Mm.
So same again with Amitri. When someone leaves the band, it is very sad, and fans always take a blow as well because they get used to having those five guys on the stage, and it's when someone else replaces them, it takes a bit of time, to get used to the idea.
There is an emotional attachment to all band players in any band that I've followed. When there's been a transition in the lineup, I love a band from New Zealand called Crowded House.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, Paul Hester was the drummer that I fell
No,
in love with. Uh,
absolutely.
I don't know whether you ever crossed paths with him over the
No,
years,
no,
but
never. But I heard so many great stories about Paul Hester.
yeah, and he was kind of like the joker of the band as well. So when he left in, I think it was '95 during the tour of the US for the Together Alone album, that was a that was a big shock to everybody. And ultimately, I think Crowded House then they took a hiatus. They split up shortly after he'd left,
That's right.
and then when they reformed, there was a new drummer that came in, a guy called Matt Sherrod, and we built up a really good friendship with him. But
Yeah,
it took a long time for people to, when you've got somebody as big a personality, say as Paul Hester, it does take its time. And with Ash, I think he is and remains, as you say, such a phenomenal drummer, and he was
absolutely.
a fantastic part of Amitri. Jim, you touched on COVID there, and you say you were thinking about packing it in and giving it up and things, but during that COVID time when everything stopped, you did that amazing thing of going and working in that care home in Skipton, which is just
Yeah,
up the road. I think I remember inviting you for a cup of tea if you were ever passing
that's right.
during that COVID time. Um,
I'd
how
probably
on
get
earth?
arrested, mind you, but
Yeah, you'd need one of those letters from your employee to say that
that's
you're what in those bizarre times. Emma had one of those to say
I
she
think they
was
were arresting hairdressers for getting in and cutting people's hair in their houses.
yeah.
It was mental times.
So I mean, it blows my mind to think that you went from where you were at that point in time, career wise, to be that trusted guy, to be playing on these massive stages, to then selflessly going into a situation like that and working in that care home. And from the interviews that you've given on it, loving it as well. How did how did that all come about? How did it happen?
Well, to be honest, Jamie, I know that this is no, Samaritan story. I mean, you know, I've got to say something very clearly. I talked to someone recently about this, and when COVID hit, obviously it was a shock to everyone. We didn't, no one knew what this was, and and to say that people were, some people said to me, I quite enjoyed the lockdown because I done this and that, and the garden get done, and we had drinks and 10 o'clock in the morning and all that. I don't think anyone mentally came out of that well.
No.
I think it was such a dark time in the history of the earth, to be honest. And touch wood, we never ever see that again because it mentally damaged so many people. So anyway, that aside, what I think it horrified me to see on the news that there was so many musicians complaining that and actors actually as well. We're out of work. That's us. We've had it. How are you going to help us? What are you going to do? You're going to give us some money to help us. And it's like, well, I tell you what you do is you're able bodied. If you are able bodied and you're fit enough, why don't you go and help yourself? Why don't you actually go and get a job? Help someone, your neighbours, help, or find a job that helps someone else during that time. And I felt embarrassed actually because um, I think there was a march through the streets of Manchester with some road crew guys pushing a flight case each to show the plight of the arts and the music industry, how they absolutely fell to bits in the space of 48 hours. And I actually felt embarrassed. I thought I don't want to be part of that. I'm gonna do something that matters. And and that is get off your backside, go and get a job. There's jobs out there. During COVID, they were crying out for
Mm.
obviously care home workers, delivery, and things that actually could make a difference, make change people, like or help people. I mean, and I thought, right, there's no way I'm going to sit in the house for the next year, which they weren't talking about at that point, but they said 6 months, and I thought 6 months is enough for me. I can't sit in the house, and also our son Reggie was born in the middle of COVID.
Mm.
So we had a newborn baby in the house, and me without any job or income stream at all. My wife with her maternity pay, obviously, and I thought, there's no way I'm going to feel sorry for myself here. No chance. I just don't do that. I can't handle that. Self pity for me is the thing that I'd have to park every time. So I looked up what jobs were available basically, and top of the list every time you punched it in was care home work. Care home, we're crying out for staff. We need this, this, and this, and this. And I thought there's one job that just appeared, and I've got to tell you how this happened. I've still got the picture, which is bizarre enough. Um, this chap contacted me and he said, "Okay, could you go to Skipton, Ashfield care home, um, and just arrive at the door and see what they can do with you, basically, if they need, what role you could fit into." And I said, "Certainly, because I need a job. And I think I started this story by saying I'm no martyr. I needed a job to earn money as well, Jamie. It
Mm.
wasn't anything to do with, I need to show the world that I'm such a good guy and this is what I do. No, I needed work and I needed income stream. So that was first and foremost to help my family. But secondly was I couldn't care less what job it was. And if it helped somebody out, then even better. It'd be more rewarding. So anyway, this chap sent me all the details, and I sent him a profile picture, obviously for your security badges and all that kind of thing. He came back to me, believe it or not, with a photograph of the Uncle Devil show, and he said, "Is this you?"
No way.
And I immediately said, "No, that's not me. That's a man called Terence." And then he came back with an answer like, "Oh, I'm really, really sorry. It's very unprofessional that I shouldn't have done that." I said, "Yeah, you look like a chap that's on this record that I really love, called A Terrible Beauty." And I kept it going for about a day, and I said, "Yeah, I know. I get mistaken for that chap a lot, but it's kind of not me." Uh, but then I let it go. I said, "Look, I can't remember his name." I said, "Look, Alan, uh, it is me, right? Okay, it is me. But look, it's like being a coal miner. I'm the best coal miner in the world, but I don't have an industry. So what am I
Right.
going to do?" So he said, "Look, you're meeting the manager there. Her name's Diane. She'll answer the door and she'll tell you what you can do." And that was the first day of I don't know, a year and a bit long journey of working for the care industry. So, and I walked through that door. Honestly, your heart sinks because you think, I've got no idea what I'm doing here. This is an outer body experience. Not only is it a normal job, like a lot of us do, and B, in the middle of the world's worst pandemic has ever seen. Then, of course, you've got a C, and that is you're having to put on almost like a spacesuit to go to work.
Mm.
So there's three things at work, and I was thinking, this is utterly bizarre. I don't know what I'm doing. And her very words to me were, "What's your name?" I said, "Oh, my name's Jim." He said, "What does he do, Jim? What did you do before this?" And I said, "Well, to be honestly, Diane, I was a professional drummer." Or I'm a professional drummer. And I went, "Oh, no." And I said, "Well, I said, Diane, is that bad?" And he went, "Oh, you're not going to last here." And I said, "Well, okay, right, I'll give you that." I said, "Right, I'll tell you what to do, Jim. Just get and get changed into your PPE. Can you cook?" And I said, "Yeah, I can cook. Yeah, yeah." I said, "Right, if you just come into the kitchen, we're making steak pie today." I was thinking, hang on a minute. Steak pie. They've got 50 residents who all wanted steak pie. So you're making a steak pie for 50 people with chips and,
Oh.
and mixed veg. And honestly, that was a baptism of fire. And from then on inwards, I worked in the kitchen in a care home because a lot of the staff they had illnesses of their own, so they're all shielding.
Mm.
So it was me and this other lady who sort of didn't know what she's doing either. So we kind of cobbled it all together. We got a steak pie together and served it up that day. And I'm thinking, this is utterly bizarre. I just don't know what is going on now. But then I thought to myself, Jim, you're not walking into, a simple mice session tomorrow. You're walking into a day of doing nothing tomorrow and the day
Yeah.
after and the day after. So why do you keep this job? Keep it going. So, Jamie, anyway, that's a long-winded story, but that's how that came about. And eventually, after about 3 months being there and the pandemic was going on and on and on, I thought, right, I'm just going to keep this going. And I won't stop. And the residents were. There was something about it that it was. It was a very spiritual experience actually because you know I got obviously the personal thing. You couldn't be very close to people. There's no hugging allowed. There's no, there's no personal touch. And I witnessed things that hopefully I never see again.
Mm,
And the things I witnessed were on the other side of a pane of glass. You had family members outside in the rain staring at their grandmother who's inside a care home, and they can only wave to each other. They can't speak. Um, and I've been asked as one of the care team, "Oh, Jim, how come I can't go outside and speak to my daughter?" And I had to explain that I'm sorry. You can't do that. You have to stay indoors, and it was horrible. Anyway, it was a really sad period, and I'm sure nurses and doctors were going through a hell of a lot worse. So, you
mm.
know, uh, the job I had was a job, a normal one, and you got to remember that I haven't had a normal job for most of my life. So, even just the thought of doing a normal job was blowing my mind. But in the middle of a pandemic, in a care home, in a kitchen, I've never been in a professional kitchen in my life. So, but I thought it's a leap of faith. Just go and do it. See how you get on. And that lasted a year. So,
Yeah,
um,
I know. And as you say, a spiritual rewarding experience.
absolutely, it was. There was. That's another thing that it's your life path. Always a great believer in fate. So I think that was meant to be for me, and and it's absolutely hilarious because I can tell you this for free. Justin's never ever heard this story, but I had my head down some old lady's toilet pan cleaning it, and I had my bottle of bleach and my Jif, my big rubber gloves on, and all the PPE I could get all over me. And Ken Bruce was on the radio, and it came on blasting out, and he said, "And here's Justin Curry from Amitri, and they're promoting their new record, Fatal Mistakes." And
No
and I was
way.
actually thinking, Jesus, and I've got my head down the toilet, and of course I won't get into the detail of what was down that toilet,
I
but
don't
anyway.
want to know about
So
that bit, no.
it's not for your listeners, it's a family show. So basically, I was thinking to myself, Jim, hang on a minute, something's went wrong in your life. And Ken Bruce was loving the record, and they played its feelings from the record, which is a
Yep.
good single. And I remember I was with this lady called Kate, another cleaner. I was on the dementia wing at this point, which is another thing again. And I turned round to Kate and I said, "That's my pal Justin on the radio." And she said, "Oh, Amitri, I love Amitri. Oh, it's my favourite band. Oh, they're great. That's your friend, is it?" And I said, "Yeah, Kate, that's my friend. He's on the radio. I've got my head down a toilet pan." And it continued from there. And I remember thinking, great, they've got the record out, because I'd met Justin just as they'd finished Fatal Mistakes. And we met for a coffee in Glasgow. And this is just before the whole COVID thing kicked in. And
Mm,
he'd said he's really happy with the record. And, they're hopefully going to go on tour again. And of course, nothing happened, of course. 2 years, nothing, zero.
yeah.
So, so it's kind of some kind of circle of faith or truth that in, I don't know, 2021, I got this phone call from Ashley, first of all, then Justin, secondly. So to say, "Do you want to come and tour?" And promote the record. I thought, wow, from having my head down the toilet pan to actually promoting the records. So honestly, I've got to say though, Jamie, that the workers, the carers, and the residents in that care home were just unbelievable. Just it was like it was a journey. It really was. But personally, it actually, I, something inside me, I quite enjoyed it, and I have no idea why.
Well, I think it takes a certain kind of person to work in a care home anyway. I know that Emma, my wife, she worked in a care home at
Yeah.
one stage in her career as well. But to do it during COVID with all the challenges, when you look back, all of those god awful rules that they put in place. And,
Oh, it was
you know,
horrendous.
if anybody could do it, Jim, you radiate positivity at the best of times. I can imagine you radiate positivity at the worst of times as well. And just going back to what you said about the guy when you were first interviewed for that job,
Yeah.
out of all of the things you've done in your career, what are the chances that he pulled out the Uncle Devil show picture?
It was.
I mean,
I was,
how
Jamie, I was
random?
absolutely dumbstruck. You know,
How
where
random is that?
you're in the darkest period of the world's history, potentially. And, and I'm applying for a job in a care home, and I'm thinking, right, this is all getting a bit, grim. Then you get this email back with a picture of himself with the Uncle Devil Show CD, and he's pointing to it in my head, and he said, "Is this you?" And actually, you know what? I burst out laughing. I couldn't stop laughing. It was just like, this is just mad. Everyone's got a story, Jamie, and I always arrive at places and I think, right, okay, well, I've done all this, so what? I'm always up for other people's stories. I mean, I've just had a, you know, pretty privileged life actually in loads of ways, and I've been lucky, um, and things that are sort of mind blowing to people, but to me, it was a life path. It never really surprised me much the jobs that I got, because I thought, well, that's just the way it's going. I mean, if the shoes the other foot, I was conducting this interview with you, I'm sure the stories you'll tell me, I'll think, wow, that's a great story. So that's the way it goes.
I think there probably may well be, but nowhere near the scale. And I think, Jim, you were a very self-effacing guy. And I think at some point when you look back at what you've done and what you continue to do, I think, at some point it'll hit home and you'll go, wow, because it is. It is. You use the phrase mind blowing, and it genuinely is. And it's so interesting as well. We're going to have to talk about the album that we were
Oh
going to
God,
talk about
not
today. I'm sorry about that.
that, not that, please.
You suggested it. You have brought Jeff Beck's Wired into Friday Vinyl Club. Jim, full transparency, I'd never heard of this album until you suggested it. I know a little bit of Jeff Beck, but I've listened to it since you suggested it the other day. I've had it on in my earphones. I've been absolutely blown away by it, but on two levels. One, I'm a lyrics guy, and I said this to you earlier. This is a purely instrumental,
That's right.
feeling experimental record. So I don't really know where to start with it. I don't know whether it is just meant to be one continuous wall of sound, or whether you can pick the bones out of it. But also the fact that it is so energetic and uplifting. I can see kind of now, after this conversation and the way you talk about being a musician, just how you were attracted to it. But when did you first hear this album? When did it first come into your life?
You know what, Jamie? I'm sure it was about 1990. I think because we had the great pleasure of having a chat, a really super famous and a superman and a super like guitar hero called Robbie McIntosh. He played with Kevin McDermott Orchestra for a while. In fact, he played on Mother Nature's Kitchen, that first record. And basically, I was only 19 at the time, and Robbie was already with the Pretenders at that time. And he come to play with us. Then Robbie said something to me. He said, "Oh, Jim, I've just, he's such a great guy and he's a great pal." He said, "Oh, Jim, I've just got a call from Paul McCartney. I think I'm just going to go and I can't tour with you guys. I'm going to play with Paul McCartney." And I'm thinking, yeah, carry on, Robbie, as you were. So anyway, Robbie went off to play with Paul McCartney for, I think it was 10 years, something like that. So anyway, this is a long story short, but he introduced me to a lot of music I'd never heard of, like at that time. Mainly Little Feat, an American band called Little Feat, who I absolutely love as well. In fact, I was torn between a Little Feat record and Jeff Beck, but Jeff Beck won. and he let me hear like one track from Wired, Jeff Beck, and I thought, Jesus, that is unbelievable. That is like I can't the, to quantify that. Inside my head is like a musician, drummer, and music fan. It was the aggression of it was unbelievable. I think it was a track called Lead Boots that he played me, which is like this kind of shuffly, funky thing. And I thought that's amazing. So anyway, it was Robbie introduced me to that 1990, and he also introduced me to an American funk band called Tower of Power, who I just absolutely loved. And over the last, I think, of the 5 years after that, I bought all the collection of Tower of Power records and the Jeff Beck collection. So I've got everything on vinyl, everything on CD. I've got the whole thing. So yeah, I'll bring you back to Wired. that was a long one, but so yeah, that's who introduced me to it. Then I thought I bought Wired, the record on vinyl. I mean, it pins you to the wall. I mean, you've heard it now, and it's like the volume that's recorded at is just unbelievable. Actually, if you put your volume too high by accident on your stereo, and the first track comes on called was it got it right in front of me here. It's
I think Lead Boots is the first track, isn't it?
oh, it is, yeah. Lead Boots it is Lead Boots. Sorry, Come Dancing was the other track I was talking about. But Lead Boots comes on, it would actually blow your speakers. It is so loud. But then it was. Then I looked down the credits and looking at who produced it, and it was none other than George Martin, the Beatles producer.
Mm.
So he was very instrumental in all of that fusion through the 70s type of stuff. There's another great fusion band in the 70s called the Mahavishnu Orchestra, who George Martin produced a lot of his that stuff, along with John Martin, who was a guitar player from that band. So George Martin brought so much to the table there, and Jeff Emerick, who's also the Beatles engineer on most of the Beatles records, he's the engineer on this album as well. And it's honestly, it just blows you away. It's like every time I put it on, it's like you hear something new in the record, and the drumming is so mental that I couldn't even get my head around it. It was just like, this is aggression. It's like aggressive funk fusion, So anyway, that's the best way I can put it. But Jeff Beck to me is probably, I mean, I've got to see a lot of amazing guitar players and heard them all, and got to play with a few of them as well. But Jeff Beck is probably the one guy that stands out the most because his guitar is almost part of his body. It's like the minute he plays, it's like that's what he's feeling at the time. Like, I'm feeling sad, so I'll play sadly. I'm feeling like aggressive, I'll play aggressively. So you kind of don't need the lyrics. He's already written the song on his guitar, So the lyrics appear through what strings he's hitting on the guitar. It's quite amazing. I know that seems quite spiritual and poetic, but that's what it means to me, that record.
No, that's the reason that I wanted to talk to you about one that you connected with on such a level. I mean, as I say, I'm a total newcomer to Jeff Beck's world, but looking into him, he's obviously got a massive, legendary catalog from 60s blues all the way through to electronic music later on. Where does this album sit in that legacy? Is it his peak, or is it one that you just fell in love with?
Yeah, he had a number one single on his own, I think, which is a commercial success. That was Hi Ho Silver Lining. That was Jeff Beck. So, he had I'm sure it was a number one, that record, in the late 60s. But nobody knew that he was actually a guitar hero. He was just like this guy, session player. I think he played with the Yardbirds. Then he had his solo career after that. And it went from like a lot of commercial success to into the 70s of funk fusion. Then through the 80s, it kind of evolved as well. I mean, that fusion in the 80s wasn't a great word. And people want to hear pop. So in the 70s, that's where it belonged, kind of thing. But it's made a resurgence again. There's loads of amazing
Mm.
funk fusion bands out there that I love. But Jeff Beck, to me, is such a guitar hero. He's even to watch him play is just like he's a natural. And to, the way he hits the strings, bends the strings, hits the volume up and down. I mean, sadly, he was gone too soon, but I think, he was absolutely, from a drummer's perspective, he's just incredible. An incredible guitar player. And
Mm.
you never see guys like this ever again. Guys or girls. These are, like almost like demigods. So in my humble opinion.
Yeah. And as I said to you earlier, when I'm listening to it, because I'm so used to songs with words, lyrics, to hear it purely instrumental, the energy in it kind of takes it to a place where I can listen to it and enjoy it even without the words, if that makes sense. Whereas I wouldn't necessarily normally listen to an instrumental album.
No, I mean, I kind of, I must admit, because I've got slightly older now. Did I say that? Yeah. So I've got slightly older, and as we all have. So I've, I must admit, in the car now, I stick on Radio 3, Classic FM, just to hear what stuff they're playing. Okay, Classic FM's more like the pop chart of classic music, but Radio 3 is more hardcore, classical. And I actually quite like the fact that they play really bizarre pieces of music, like
Mm.
instrumental. It's all classical, and I love chord structures, and because it's emotional. When you hear a chord structure, you think, "Wow, that's amazing." And I guess it's like, this, if it's any analogy at all, it's like watching Jaws for the first time, where that music starts,
Yeah.
then you start to get scared, and you don't know why you're getting scared. It's because of the music, and it's an instrumental. So basically, you've got this pumping, the big cellos and the stuff happening is dun, 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 and you're getting scared and you don't know why. And I think classical music does that to me, where it's it stirs up something inside you didn't know was there. So I quite like it from that perspective.
Mm. As somebody like myself who doesn't play any instruments, when I hear any artist play, there's always a magical element of it. I'm always very envious around it. When you listen to this particular album as a working musician, do you pick things out and think, how the hell have they done that? Does it amaze you? Or
Well,
have you learned anything from this album?
yeah, totally. I nicked quite a lot of the drum grooves off it, to be honest. There's a song called "Come Dancing" on it, and I thought, I'm having that one. That's got it for me, because we done a song on the Kevin McDermott Orchestra record, "Bedazzled." It's a song called "Hole in the Ground," and it's a drum shuffle. Basically, it's a shuffly thing, and I nicked that from "Come Dancing" because I was so impressed with the drumming in it. I thought, I can't, I don't really know what he's doing there. Just a kind of shuffly thing he's doing with the snare drum. And I thought, that's great. I'm going to have that. So, it's not plagiarism, because of course I'm not going to play it like exactly as it's played, but you've kind of nicked the idea. Um, and I think because that record has got so many ideas on it, and the main feature drummer is this, guy called Narada Michael Walden, an American, and basically he just plays all these incredible grooves. They just you can't. Impossible to understand what he'd been listening to at the time. To be honest,
Mm.
because you can't. You can't get into a recording studio and say to someone, "Oh, by the way, this is the way this song's going to start. I'm just going to play it now," and you come out with lead boots, and it's like, wow. So that's the thing. That's the magic for me. How did that happen? How did he get away with that?
Well, I was going to ask you if you were in if you were in that recording studio and you were with Jeff Beck, how would you approach that situation? Because it does sound a lot of it is improvised, but surely there was a bit of structure behind it as well.
Okay, I mean, if you look at the credits, Jamie, you've got George Martin at the helm there, so this is an old head, um, and coming from a classical background as well, George Martin, he would have known exactly what they were doing and what they're capable of doing.
Mm,
So, when we talk about it's experimental and blah de blah, I think there's more structure going on than you think. I think there was an awful lot of bar lengths and rehearsal, and if you do this, I do that, and this is where certain guitars tones come in there. And to be honest, I've got to say though, I think the drumming, uh, the takes on the drumming, I'm sure they were first or second takes because I doubt the drummer could have played Lead Boots twice the same way.
the same way. Yeah.
Exactly, I think that's got to be the first or second take he's done, and I've thought
Mm,
that's incredible. We're keeping that. And they've all been in the one room playing it as well, which is really important. I think they've all been looking at each other, not through glass screens and had headphones on. I'm sure they just went into wherever it was. I think it was Air Studios in London, and they
mm,
all just sat in a room and played that, which is quite unbelievable, really. Um, but it is just one of those records. It's a it's just a magical piece of music all in one. Um,
mm,
and I urge any guitar player, any bass player, any keyboard player, and any drummer to go and listen to that record because the playing on it from every angle is incredible. It's sublime, actually.
mm.
So, and even the bass grooves on it are just fantastic.
Most of the album is so high octane. You've called out two tracks, Lead Boots and Come Dancing. The one
Yeah,
that struck me, I don't know whether I'd call it an outlier, but Goodbye Pork Pie Hat.
yeah, yeah.
You've got you've got everything else that is so up tempo, and then this track feels really different.
That's right. It's really
It,
gentle.
yeah, is it? How do you feel about that? Is it like a brief pause in the album, or do you think it's actually the emotional center of the record?
Yeah, I think it's actually a pause because you got to remember, Jamie, that it's not too long ago that people were listening to whole albums as you're meant to listen to them. You're not just shuffle, pause, skip, blah de blah. So people were putting on these CDs and vinyls like you're meant to listen. Like side A, you do this, you listen to the end of it, then you flip over to side B and you listen to that. So it's like a book, really.
Yeah,
So it does have that pause in the middle where it's like, oh, that's really nice. Actually, that's lovely. So
yeah.
it's storytelling, really. And I think that album is perfectly bookended that way, where all the aggression is at the start. It's like anger, and the lead boots thing is just unbelievable. It's just like then all of a sudden it drifts off into goodbye pork pie hat. You got a sort of this funky bit of blue wind, and it's I don't know, every piece of music on this record has just got something about it, and that's why I love it
Mm.
so much.
You mentioned something there we talk about on the Friday Vinyl Club podcast, which is intentional listening, around the fact that, nowadays music feels very disposable. Lots of albums get put out there digitally. And as you say, people, whether they've got busy lives and they don't have time to sit and listen to things from start to finish, so they swipe and swipe, and sometimes a whole album just never gets heard
That's
nowadays.
right, that's true.
Um, from your perspective in the industry, and how much work goes into thinking about how the songs sit with each other and how the sequencing goes together, and when you are going to have that, if you're putting it on vinyl, that break between side A and side B.
It used to be, very, very important. It used to be like almost as important as recording the record itself as to what the order they're gonna go in. Um But it's going less and less now, Jamie, because, I read this statistic recently, that on Spotify, I think a new album or a new piece of music to somebody listening for the first time has got 5 seconds. That's how much you've got to impress somebody before they actually press skip or stop or, or shuffle, whatever. So basically, nowadays, the order of things, that art form is slowly dying, I think, not unless they are going to put it in vinyl, which is meant to be listened to, in order like a book, it's going to
Mm.
have the beginning, middle, and end, So I think it's, the art form of that is dying slightly, Jamie. Yeah. I mean, because that used to be very, very important. It's kind of gone slightly.
Yeah, there is a renaissance, obviously, in vinyl. I think I read in 2025 that they'd sold $1 billion worth of vinyl records in the industry, which was the biggest since the early 80s.
Wow.
I
Well,
mean,
to be honest, Jamie, they've never stopped making record players. So
no,
it tells you something that the record play or the turntable industry has never stopped producing turntables. So there's a market for it, even when they thought it was all about to die. They're still making them. So it tells you that the people in the know knew that it was going to make a comeback.
mm. And there's definitely something about the physical medium, having the album in your hand. We're going to touch on the artwork in a second, but having that and then having that space to, I mean, we're really lucky. We've got a little vinyl den that me and Ollie will go and sit and we'll listen to a record and he'll get up and turn the record. Hopefully you'll have the same with Reggie as he gets older.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, the people that I talk to on this podcast, everybody says the same thing, that the actual ritual of owning and listening to records is something that gives them a bit of mindfulness during these busy times and busy lives that we lead. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I totally agree.
but it's magic, having that huge piece of vinyl in your hand and all the credits and all the artwork and all the things you want to see is in front of you, rather than this whole digitized thing where you've got to go and see, I wonder who played on that. Then you got to look up Wikipedia and it's blah de blah de blah. It's all right in front of you, right there.
Mm,
It's loads of info. It's got nice pictures, hopefully none of me. And then you've got a total running order, and you play the record like it's meant to be heard, and it's lovely.
mm. And talking of the artwork for this particular album, for Wired by Jeff Beck, it's quite striking, isn't it? It's an iconic image.
I'm actually kind of looking at it now, and it's kind of like the thing is that I always looked at that artwork and I thought, well, I was kind of nonplussed about it, and I've always kind of thought to myself, in I guess in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, artwork was like the big thing, and it had to be right because most artwork you get is very iconic now. Even the Beatles' Rubber Soul is the four of them on the front. It's like, and you get these albums that are like, wow, exactly. Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. It's the prism
Yeah.
looking, the light shining out and stuff. So you know exactly. But with this one, I think it's kind of like they're not taking too much time on that. I think
It's a bit underwhelming, do you think,
it is very
Jim?
underwhelming.
Because
Maybe
I mean, I saw it for the first time this week, but I quite liked it. It's kind of like Jeff Beck lost in the moment. He stood there on his guitar. You've got that sort of heavily retouched photo on the front. I guess back when it was produced, they probably looked at that and thought it was futuristic.
or maybe.
Whereas you're looking at it, you're looking at it now and going, "Yeah, you've not put
Well,
much
it's
effort into that, Jeff."
exactly. I think they just caught him at a good moment and thought he's on stage, he's smiling, and I think he probably never smiled at the time, so he thought, "Oh, Jeff, we've got one. He's smiling. We'll just keep that one then." And he's went, "Yeah, that's good."
Yeah, we'll have that one. So, Jim, this record has obviously since the '90s has travelled with you a long way.
Yeah.
Is there any of the sort of pieces of music on here that have changed meaning for you over time?
Well, to be honest, you know, because we've moved house so many times now, Jamie, that um, trying to get my turntable set up in different houses has been tricky. I always try and get it set up as quick as I can, just to try and get some music going. But you know, it's only actually in the last 6 months we got the turntable up and running here again, and put this on. And I must admit, I'm falling in love with it again. You know, I'm going through the old record again and going, "Oh, that drags me back to, you know, 1991, whatever it was when I bought the record, and how I felt when I first heard it." And you know, I guess that's the romance of it. You know, I'm still quite, you know, still in love with that record. To be honest, it's because it reminds me of something as well, and I guess that's what music does. It's you reminisce, you know, and
Yeah.
um, with that particular record, it's definitely reminds me of how, you know, good I had to be if I wanted to ever play with Jeff Beck, and I had to be better than that drummer. And I thought, "No chance, absolutely no chance. There's no way I can do that." So, yeah, that's the connection I've got with, which is it's like an old friend. Um, I think when I'm, you know, you think, "Oh, well, you know, what will I put on today? Oh, yes, put on Wired, Jeff Beck," and then crank it up to you don't need 10 on that thing. I think you need about 5 or 6, and you're still getting the gist of it.
Yeah. I think
So,
that's the magic of music though, isn't it? It can pull you back to specific moments in your life, or it can, it can bring you comfort and joy.
it's it's, you know, I mean, okay, without being very, dipsy about this, it's like it's a language that everyone understands, everybody, you know, and, if you know, someone in, I don't know, Botswana can hear "She Loves You" by the Beatles and dance, you know, that is, and you don't speak their language, you know, you can communicate through music, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you were going to recommend a Jeff Beck album to somebody like myself who was pretty new to his work,
Yeah.
is this genuinely the starting point for Jeff Beck, or would you point them to another album in his back catalogue?
Um, to be honest, I think if you wanna hear Jeff Beck at his absolute prime, I think this record, because I mean, I know I've touched on experimental, but it's him, you know, like, totally going for it. Whereas I think the other records I've heard, Blow by Blow is another one which is very, very good. But it's more produced. It's more kind of like, it's quite slick in a way, whereas this record's really hardcore. It's like, all the musicians are totally going for it. Like it's the last album they're ever gonna record in their life. So, I don't know, I'm very biased this way, but I think Wired is the one, you know? I think you've got to stick with it a wee bit, and,
Mm.
it's not for everyone, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but that's the joy of music. There's no snobbery in music. So, you
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
you like what you like for a reason, and, I would say if you are, yeah, if you're gonna get into Jeff Beck, go and listen to Lead Boots and see what you think. After you've after you've recovered from that, go and have a nice cup of tea.
Exactly what you said to me, and I was absolutely blown away. I can't wait for my vinyl copy to turn up. And that's the beauty of Friday Vinyl Club, right? We've had this 2022 episodes and so many diverse albums. I never thought I would be listening to Tom Waits' Swordfish Trombones time and time again.
Wow.
And yet, when Sam introduced me to it, I was just like absolutely blown away. And yet, Tom Waits has never been on my musical landscape. So, um, yeah,
Well, I
that's
mean,
the joy of it.
to be honest, I think, you know, it's like I chose deliberately an instrumental record as well, because I've played on so many, you know, with so many great bands with great lyricists. My origins come from, you know, listening to all sorts of weird and wonderful, instrumental records. I mean, I was into, I guess, experimental jazz records when, I was really young, I mean, like 15 or 16, because I bought the whole collection of Weather Report records for probably for £1 each, then on vinyl. And I was totally into a band called Weather Report from the US, who are, very jazz fusion orientated. And they had this incredible bass player, one of the probably the best bass player in the world at the time, a guy called Jaco Pastorius, who I think maybe some of the listeners have heard of. Um, but yeah, bands like that. So I knew that then I was totally into, far out music,
Mm.
and that really helped my drumming as well. Because if I just kept to listening to pop and rock, I probably wouldn't have been the player that I guess I am. Because I loved time signatures. I loved listening to, you know, um, 7/8, 5/8, things that don't make sense. And how do they work that into a track? How do they get away with it? What's the drummer doing then? And that sparks my brain. So it's cool. That's why Jeff Beck was a natural course for me.
Yeah, I totally understand your perspective after this conversation, and the drumming on this album is it, as you say, it's unreal. Just
Oh, it is.
absolutely an incredible level.
It's so explosive. It's like somebody who's went into the studio really, really angry, and they've counted in the track, and he's just exploded behind the drum kit,
Mm.
and but it's kind of controlled explosion, musical, but all that energy, you can feel how much energy he has to expend to actually play those songs. It's unbelievable.
I can't imagine him touring that album and
I think
trying to recapture that night after night after night.
there's actually a clip recently, Jamie. Well, recently before Jeff Beck died, of course, um, of Jeff Beck done a run of shows at Ronnie Scott's in London.
Oh, in London,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and I think it was like he done 5 or 6 shows, but it was a quartet thing. So it was Jeff Beck, a young Australian bass player called Tal Wilkenfeld, this girl on bass, she looks about 12, but she can play bass like nobody's business. She's incredible. And the great Vinnie Colaiuta, who I mentioned earlier, on drums, and he's playing for Jeff Beck. And they played most of this record, and he plays it live. And I thought, wow. And the drummer, who's an incredible player, he just nails every beat. So it is on YouTube. You can find this. So if you think there's no way they could play that live, then somebody had to do it, and
Somebody
it was
they
Vinnie
did it.
Colaiuta. It wasn't me,
Wow.
thank God.
I'll look that up. I'll look that up. All right. Looking away from Wired then and back into your own world, Jim,
Mhm. Yeah.
it looks like you've got a heck of a year now lined up. Obviously, you've got a new arrival,
Yeah.
second child on the way. We know you're heading out to the US to see our American Del Amitri fan base.
Yeah, of course.
And then you'll be coming back, hopefully recording a new Del Amitri album. I saw word on the forums that potentially even a double album might
Yeah.
be in the works.
Well, I can give you a sneak bit of info there, and that is, I've already recorded half of the record.
Oh, no way.
I have, yeah, yeah. So, basically, the drums are now in place for half of that record. There's probably another, I've no idea how many tracks are left, but there will be more. So I was in Glasgow about 6 weeks ago, and I just had a brilliant time recording. Um, and stayed with Justin. We had such a good laugh. We just cooked food and watched football. That's all we done. And
Ah,
it was magic fun. It was just like, you know, because after all, he's my great friend. So
yeah.
so when you get into your friend's house, it's just like, and someone's got the kettle on, and there's a European football game on it. mean, that's it's sheer heaven. So anyway, we just recorded during the day, back to Justin's, watched football, made some dinner, went to bed, and done the same for 5 days. So yeah, it's half done, the record.
Half done. And
Yeah.
how's it sounding from
Oh,
a?
the drums are brilliant, Jamie. Yeah,
Of course, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
they'll
You
be
just,
they'll
I mean,
be
it's
top
sublime.
notch. Do we expect any sort of deviation in sound, or has it still got that Amitri groove? I guess.
There's loads of so much telemetry in there. It's like the fans will just be fall in love with this record because there's so many deep lyrics, and also, of course, you've got Ian sort of producing a lot of stuff as well.
Hmm.
So there's loads of great ideas in there. There's has many twists and turns, but I can't give anything away that way. But it's lyrically, it's just probably one of the best Delamitri records I've heard lyrically, and that is the truth.
Wow, I genuinely can't wait for what's coming up. And then you later in the year, you back on tour in the UK. I know we see you in Leeds,
Oh
York,
yeah,
Manchester, and London.
okay.
Out of unfortunately not coming up to Glasgow this time round.
Oh,
What what's it like on that tour bus? And is there anything you both hate about it or are looking forward to about it?
because there's things that I think I've got to be really honest, Jamie. And I think I toured the US for the first time when I was 20, and I was on a tour bus with you know basically my brother and the band that I was with, the Ken McDermott Orchestra at the time. We toured with the Alarm for 2 months, and that was in 1989. And I tell you, you never ever forget your first tour, even if it's just a tour around the north of Scotland. You always remember what you were doing and what you were up to. So, and in your 20s, and you're seeing things for the first time you've never ever seen in your lifetime before, like the Hollywood sign, Statue of Liberty, the White House, the Capitol building, mental stuff going on. So as you do more tours of the US, it doesn't wear off any, but you just get slightly older. And
Mm.
I think now, sadly, yeah, and it's just a fact of life, you've got to replenish your energy. So you go into tour buses now, and because we've all known each other so long, and we're all, I must admit, we're all great pals. We've just been round the block so many times, um, and of course you're dining together, you're playing together, you go on a bus together, you sleep together. So you're part of it. It's like I think poor buddy or dear departed guitar roadie, he always said it's like a pirate ship.
Mm.
The minute you step on board, it's like you're part of the crew, and you you just respect each other's movements, and half the time you're going to have some of the crew on board as well, like your road crew, who have different times for you. I mean, they have to get up maybe 8 o'clock in the morning to load in the drums or the guitars, whatever. But you don't have to be up 8 o'clock in the morning, but they'll be making noise. So, you get used to these things. And if you think about it, on the Bare Naked Ladies tour 2 years ago, we'd done something like 48 dates. It was a long, long tour. We were out in the US for 2 months. And basically, there was 15 of us on that tour bus,
Wow.
and not many hotels on that road. So, so basically, you are sleeping on a tour bus for 2 months, and things can get really quite tight, and you got to just relax, just try and chill out as much as you can, and that is rule number one. Um, and there's nights where you won't be feeling that great, and maybe something went wrong that night, or you're just feeling a bit homesick or whatever. But you're all together. You're doing this together as a band, and you
Mm.
all feel it as well. It's not a question of, one person's feeling like that, and and you're not. It's just you get each other through it. That's what you do, and it can be very tough. You do miss being in your own bed. I'll give you that.
Mm.
That's the truth.
Yeah, it sounds like there's incredible camaraderie around touring
Oh yeah,
bands
absolutely,
and
absolutely.
artists.
There's you have to be able to get on, and this is what I talked about earlier in this interview. Trust is the big issue when you get hired in a band. They've got to be able to trust you, and
Mm.
because you might be sleeping together for the next 2 months, and if you not get that trust, it's not happening. It doesn't feel good. So yeah, but that's the only downsides. The rest of it is just as I started the interview with, you got the best job in the world. So what are you feeling so down about?
Yeah,
It's
and
great.
then the fact that you can't hear any of the audience screaming their love for you when you finally get off
Exactly.
that tour bus and put your ears in
You
and get on
put your ears
stage.
in, and those lights go down, and that 2 hours worth of sheer magic, that's what makes it all worthwhile in the end. Just to
Yeah.
go on the stage. This sounds like a cliche. It's not, but your whole day spent maybe moping about, a headache, whatever, or in a city you don't know, and you've no idea where you're going, and just trying to find something to do to occupy yourself for the whole day. And it actually gets a bit lonely and a bit tedious sometimes.
Hmm.
Um, so that magic of the gig is all you're thinking about, and that's all you should think about, to be honest. So when you step on stage, it's a bit of a relief, to be honest.
Sounds like it's quite addictive as well, that
Oh
buzz
God, yeah, yeah.
of getting up there.
It's incredible, Jamie. Honestly, and we're pampered. You're on a big tour bus. You arrives. The caterer starts setting up the breakfast, and you go and have your breakfast. Then you go and explore the city, whatever you want to do. Come for your sound check at maybe 4 o'clock. Get some dinner with the caterers. Then prepare for showtime, and and kind of rule number one is don't have a late dinner, whatever you do. I've done that
Ah.
mistake before. You're sitting there with your spaghetti bolognese at 6 o'clock in the evening, thinking, "Hang on a minute, I'm on stage in 2 hours. I can't digest this."
A bit of indigestion while you're
Exactly, exactly. Don't do
playing
it.
away.
I assure you, just do not do that.
All right. All right, Jim. We always finish the podcast with a Friday spin, which is a recommendation for our listeners, which could be something old or something new, something rediscovered. Have you got any recommendation for our listeners for today?
Yeah, you know what? There was an artist that um, you know what? Right, there's a story behind this. I'll keep it short. When we done the Bare Naked Ladies tour, um, their engineer, the front house engineer, always used to put on some, pre-show music through the PA, so the audience filters in, and so it's not silent. But there's always one song that came up, and I thought, I've no idea who that is. And I asked him, there's a nice chap called Robin who done their engineering, and he said, "Oh yeah, Jim, that's a female artist called Jenny Lewis, and she's a kind of sort of pseudo Americana pop lady, but she had this one track called Puppy and the Truck, and oh, I just love this track. And anyway, that's my recommendation: Jenny Lewis, Puppy in a Truck.
Puppy in a Truck, Jenny Lewis. Thank you very much.
She's
I've
fabulous.
written that down. I will find that track. Jim, thank you so much for bringing your story and Jeff Beck's Wired to Friday Vinyl Club. Did you enjoy that?
Jamie, absolutely. Thank you. I thank you very much for this. I've got a habit of chuntering on about something completely different from the question asked. So thanks for bearing with me.
Oh, no, it's been fantastic. It's always amazing to hear how music flows through our lives, and to have the perspective of a music lover and a music maker has been absolutely incredible. To our listeners, you'll find a few tracks from Wired on our companion playlist, the Friday Vinyl Club Spotify playlist. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, share, or leave us a rating. It really helps a small family podcast organically grow without sponsors and without ads. Until next time, thanks for listening. Keep your records spinning and your stories alive. Thanks, Jim. Really appreciate that.
Absolutely, Jimmy. It's been a pleasure and love to all. Take care of yourselves out there. Bye-bye.